My name is Clement Juma and I'm from South Sudan. And basically, I teach this for students from South Sudan, but it can help you from wherever you are going to get this lesson. This is the second unit in the Senior 1 textbook, South Sudan, particularly talking about particulate, which comes from the word particles, particulate nature of matter, the formula, and the chemical equations. What we are going to do in this unit, we're going to look at the nature of particles, particularly when we're talking about matter. And then we will also be looking at elements and chemicals. And then specifically the elements will be addressing, we will know how to write the formula for chemical equations. Then we'll look at also the chemical equations. We'll look at formula and the chemical equations. And then particularly, this topic starts very simple. It starts with understanding the word matter. You've already learned from primary school what matter is. We say matter is anything that has weight and occupies space. When you see around you, definitely you are going to see so many things. The visible, you may see some things physically, but certain things you can't see them physically, but they have names. As a matter of fact, I tell students matter is just like anything that has a name, more like a noun in English. Anything that has a name, it can be something visible or something invisible. But in chemistry particularly, we'll be looking at things that are visible. Then to some extent we'll be looking at gases which are invisible to us to some extent. But this is mainly what we'll be addressing in this. For now, we will take it short and brief. For today, we'll only be looking at these two main. But before that, we will expound on the definition of formula later, the definition of chemicals later, when we will be talking about elements in the nearest future and some of the changes that will happen. But today, I want to start very simple. We'll be looking at the states of matter. States of matter, we say matter has or exists in three states. What this means is this. When you look around you, you're going to discover that things are divided into three categories. One, everything around you might either be solids. If not solids, there might be liquids. If not liquids, there must be gases. Now, let's have a look at each one of these. When we talk about solid as a state of matter, solid as a state of matter, what do we mean? What we mean here is when we say something is in a solid state, what we mean is this thing is hard, this thing is heavy, this thing does not flow easily. Basically, I will give you some few examples of things that are in form of solid. For example, the marker in my hand is an example of solid. What makes it an example of solid? When you touch it, it's hard. Just one. It has some weight. It's heavy. Then it does not flow easily like water. If I turn this upside down, nothing flows from it. It remains hard. Just like we have, this is a camera, and a camera is an example of solid. It is not only camera, it can be the board. Yeah, the board is hard, heavy, and does not flow easily. That is how simple I break down the examples of solid. You can check around you, starting from your pen, the book, you use the mobile phone. Yeah, is an example of a solid is an example of solid as a state of matter. Maybe the laptop you're watching us from can also be an example. The chair you're sitting on, the table you are seated at, all this can be examples of matter. Look around you, anything that has a name around you and is in a solid form, is a solid state of matter, exists in a solid state of matter. And maybe if I ask you to give examples of things that exist in this state of matter, you'll be able to mention as many as you can. You can go as far as maybe 1,000 or 10,000 examples are concerned. Now, when we come to the second state, which we call the liquid state, liquid, we say flow. Liquids flow easily. They can be heavy, not all the time. Let me use the word soft. And so many others. One of the things that we identify liquid by is the ability to flow easily. And liquid is anything that does not have a specific shape, but whatever you put it into, it takes the shape of that thing. But basically, how do you know that something is a liquid? When you take this thing, be it in a cup, you pour it somewhere and it can easily flow. For example, if you take water in a glass, then you pour the water out, you're going to discover the water will flow off the cup, or it will pour out of the cup. That is an example of what makes us know that something is a liquid. You can go as far as porridge, partly we say it is, but when it is maybe fresh from the fire, if it is like easily, it can easily flow. Like we know, some people eat, but we say you drink sometimes. Porridge, talk of tea, liquid, it flows easily. Talk of honey, talk of so many other things, petrol, kerosene, and all this. These are things that can easily flow. You move from one place to another depending on where you direct it through, something like that. Now gases, with gases we say gases are invisible most of the time, but their impact is visible. When we talk of gases, we are mainly talking about things that exist in nature that are chemical in nature. They exist in nature, but they are chemical in nature. For example, we talk of oxygen gas. Of course, you cannot see oxygen with your eyes, but the impact of oxygen is visible. Carbon dioxide, for instance, is also invisible. One thing that we call the visible gas is maybe water vapor. Let's look at the properties. Each of these three states of matter have different behaviors. They don't behave the same way, they behave differently. For example, in terms of particles, first of all, what is a particle? A particle is basically the smallest part of something that can either be visible or invisible. For example, this is a piece of chalk in my hand. Then this chalk is made up of particles. When I take a little part of it, then I crush it, you're going to see some things dropping, and that is what we call particles. When you put together the particles, you're going to get the chalk. Now, this is exactly what we mean. When we talk about the properties, you have to know something. The particles, that is the main thing. Now, when you look at this, for something to qualify, one of the properties for solid, now I'm coming to something in a solid state, what must you see in that thing to qualify it to be a solid? Number one thing that you must see is that the particles of anything in a solid state is always packed, is always close to each other. As a matter of fact, they are sticky. I use the chalk again. This one, for you to get this, you cannot easily hold it like this and break it, smash it into pieces. You must apply some force. Now, whatever you see, these particles dropping, these particles were used, put together, combined to form this piece of chalk. Now, therefore, what we are trying to say is, without the particles, nothing will exist in a solid form. So the particles are very important. We say the particles of this are sticky. We say sticky or packed. Something like this. I might be wrong, but packed particles. The particles are fused together. Let me say this the right word. Fused together. When you take a stone, you're going to discover that the stone is hard. What makes it hard is because the particles are fused together, and the fusion of the particle is what gives it the hardness. Yeah. Then we say anything in solid form. 2, second property, we say it's hard. I just use the word hard because I explained it up here before. Now, any solid particle is hard. Take this, you press on it, it's hard. Anything you take, the camera I showed you earlier, it's hard. Something like that. Anything in solid form has weight. Solid can change state depending on what kind of solid you have. If you have the ice is an example of a solid substance, and it can change state from being solid to liquid. So it changes from solid to liquid. When you come to liquid, liquid is something that can flow easily. Liquid flows easily is one of the properties. It flows easily, and we say the particles are scattered. Okay, what this one means is, in relation to this, we say the particles of solid are packed together, but the particles of liquid are not like packed together, but they are not that distant from each other. They are close, not far, not that big gap. So it is more like this. The particles are distant from each other, like this. Then for solid, more like this, packed together. And mostly, sometimes they move in a fixed direction, or sometimes when directed towards something. For example, if you're moving water from maybe a cup into a pot, you're going to discover you will be directing the particles in a one-to-one place or to one thing. But in some instances, like water flowing in the river, you cannot direct it to a specific direction. Maybe in a lake, the water moves in different direction. We say the movement of the water is the movement of particles, something like that. Then we say the particles are not that packed together, they are not that sticky, or more like fused together completely, like for solid. Then when you come to gaseous state, we say the particles are far apart. They are not like close to each other, but they are far apart, and they move in different directions. That's one thing, they are far apart and they move in different directions. When you're moving on the road, you're going to discover you get oxygen from literally all directions. When you go left, you find oxygen. You go right, you find oxygen. And all over the place, you get oxygen, meaning no specific direction. And the particles move in different directions, and the particles are far apart from each other. Something like that. This brings us to the end of the states of matter and the properties of each of the 3 states. To summarize or to wrap up, we say matter is made up of 3 states. The first state is the liquid state, and the second state, the first state is the solid state, the second state is the liquid state, the third state is the gaseous state, or gases in form of gases. Then we say all the 3 have things that you can easily identify them by. Number 1, you have solid. Solid, something in a solid state will always be hard, will also always be heavy, and the particles are fused together. Then we say something in a liquid state will always, will always flow easily. Example like water, porridge, and all this. When you pour it, they can easily flow. Then we say the particles are not that sticky, they are loose, not like for solid. The particles are loose. That is why it gives it the the freedom to flow easily. And then we come to gaseous. We say gaseous, we say the particles are far apart from each other. Then we say the particles move in different direction, not one direction, something like this. This brings us literally to the end of this lesson. See you in the second part, where we'll be talking about the changes in the states of matter.